kind of funny when you read blogs like I did, the one that I read yesterday, and did a video on about Jerry DeWitt. When you read blogs like that, that came out funny. Blogs. Okay, whatever. When you read blogs like that, written by somebody from the religious community, and it's like they have this derision, this almost like contempt toward somebody who's like Jerry, or Teresa McBain is another pastor who had the guts to stay honest and true to what she really believes and thinks, and that's what it takes. I mean, people, human nature in general, people don't like to admit they're wrong, and the average person likes to be in a situation or in a position where they are regarded as an authority, as somebody who knows their shit. They're looked up to. People go to them for advice and their opinion because they're deemed to be wise and insightful. And people like that. Everybody likes to have somebody look upon them or come up to them and talk to them like they are, their opinion is respected and they know what they're talking about and they're an authority figure. They're, that's a neat feeling to be in that position. And people who are who have their own I'm not, but I have a pretty good imagination, and I have to imagine that it must be a good feeling for these pastors to have their own flock of people that they feel like they're they truly feel in their hearts that they're leading these people and helping these people through life and helping them, being supportive to these people and basically doing a good thing. I mean, nobody gets, well, probably most people don't get into the whole idea of becoming a leader in the church without the desire to want to help people and guide people. So these are people who are good in their hearts to begin with. They have good. Nobody gets into it for money. I highly doubt they do anyway, unless they're like the evangelist people on TV, which are only in it for the money. But anyway, I think people need to think about what kind of courage and integrity it would take. I mean, people don't just say, "Oh, you know what? I'm bored now. I think I'm gonna become an atheist because, it's cool and I really want to get hate mail all the time and have people write nasty blogs about me and lose my job and lose all the respect that I've worked so hard to acquire and lose friends and lose family members." And when we think about what all the things that Jerry DeWitt has lost, that's not unusual. That's actually pretty common for people who were once well thought of in their communities, just because they don't hide and continue the sham and continue to be, whatever, leaders of their church, but they don't really believe it. They're in it for the money. That's what they do to make a living. Rather than continue on basically being a false representation of something that they don't believe anymore, they're standing up and they're saying, even if they're facing poverty or loss of friends or loss of family or loss of reputation or loss of respect, they're standing up and they're saying, "I can't do this anymore. I can't believe this anymore." You know how much guts that must take? They don't, a lot of them, from what I've heard, they don't just do it overnight. They think about it and they try to, it takes a lot of soul searching. It takes a lot of, I can only say so much because I've not been there, but I have, like I said, I have a good imagination, and I just can't even imagine the courage that it would take. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong. Nobody Imagine if you're teaching something for years and years and years to people, and then one day you realize you're wrong. You know, Can you imagine standing up in front of a crowd of people that have looked upon you as their advisor and their leader and their counselor, look to you for insights and wisdom, and you have to stand up in front of those people and say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. I think it takes a hell of a lot of character to be a person who can do that. And that's what blows me away about a lot of the reactions I see from the religious community toward former pastors, people of the cloth. It's like, imagine if you were and get rid of the religion aspect of it for a minute. Just imagine that you were, say, I'm trying to think of a good example. You were in a really high-powered position and you were leading a whole company, and everybody was looking like, okay, Bill Gates. Okay, let's imagine you're Bill Gates, and you come up with this great new idea, and your company puts all this money into this great new idea, and everybody's all fired up. They think this is the way for the company to get even more super rich, and then one day you just realize, you're the guy who figured out this new wonderful idea. You just realize it's wrong. Imagine, you're somebody who's got a reputation and people look up to you, and you have to say, I'm sorry, I hate to say this, guys, but you put all this work and time and effort into this, and it's wrong. Anyway, I thought I would read. I don't know if I'm going to read very many, and certainly just one for this video, but I thought I might just read a couple testimonials from the Clergy Project, and I'm going to try very hard to leave out too much details, because these are anonymous. These are people who wish to be anonymous, I believe, and for their protection, I don't want that to change. This is somebody who writes, I served as an Anglican priest, I hope I said that right, for 12 years and have been out of the ministry for 5 years. My concerns about Christian treatment of non-Christians whose lives we were supposedly improving led me to secular and scientific readings, which ultimately led me away from faith. During my ministry, I became painfully aware of the residential schools abuses that had been perpetrated upon Aboriginal children. The government, I'm not going to say of what country again, along with the Catholic, Anglican, and Lutheran churches, set out to Christianize Aboriginals and integrate them into mainstream society. As a result, it was mandatory for these children to attend special Aboriginal schools. We kept an old file of photos of children from our parish who were sent off to school up to 800 kilometers away from their families every winter. Once at school, children... Oh shoot, I just did something funky and I lost my place. Once at school, children were forbidden to speak their native language. They were scrubbed, their hair was shorn with clippers. Many were beaten with wooden paddles for punishment, and some were sexually abused by the same men and women who taught them to pray. About 1/4 of my, I've already proven that I don't know how to say this word, parishioners, had attended these schools during their youth, and I was quite amazed that any of them retained a Christian faith. In the mid-1990s, the last of these schools stopped its operation just as my ministry was beginning. I often wondered how those who ran the schools could see themselves as the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. I spent a good part of my ministry talking to people about issues like the residential schools program. I witnessed firsthand the dysfunction that it brought to Aboriginal society, rampant alcoholism, broken families, where the children lost the language of their home community, and a cultural divide between parents and children that worsened as the children grew older and as they spent more winters away from home. Children were told that the religion of their parents was wrong, and they were taught to pray to the Christian God. In 2006, I approached a senior pastor and friend and told them I was struggling with my faith. He suggested I talk to our bishop. The bishop was concerned enough for me that he thought I should take a break from ministry. During the break, I had plenty of time to think. I explored philosophy, science, another big word that I can't say. Hey, what can I say? And finally, I read a book called The Selfish Gene by Richard Dawkins. I will never forget how it awakened my mind and how it stirred a deep curiosity within me. I desperately needed to know more about who I am, where I really came from, and how it is that, as humans, we have evolved to be the way we are. I started to see that my model of the world was not working. I have to apologize for all the big words that I mess up. I like to write, but actually reading these things out loud is actually really kind of hard. Okay. I still remember one pivotal morning. I lay in bed, the warm summer sun streaming from my window. It dawned on me for the first time after 32 years of committed Christian life that the world makes much more sense without a God in it. All the violence, all the chaos, pain, and suffering, where is our loving God? Why didn't he intervene and help those children? Does God even care? I had tried so hard to present God as loving, kind, and caring in every sermon I preached, but I could not believe it anymore. Deep inside, I secretly knew I was no longer fit for ministry. How could I tell my children I didn't believe anymore? How could I tell my wife? I tried to believe, but nothing worked. I could not reconcile my newly found atheism with the biblical texts that demanded surety, faith, and trust in a loving God. Finally, my sabbatical ended and I resigned in 2006. I had spent many long hours talking it over with my wife, and I finally told my children. They weren't happy, but they understood why I rescinded my holy orders. The next step was to tell my father, who is also a clergyman. I'll never forget his reaction as he tried repeatedly to convince me I was destined for hell. Some of my former parishioners, I hope I said that right, phoned and tried to convince me I was wrong. "You're going to hell, Jeff," some of them said. My head pounded. No one would listen. It's as if they were immune to my reasoning. I'm not a bad person. I just don't believe anymore. I felt very alone. What would I do with my future? Luckily, I had worked as a tradesman for many years before going into ministry. I knew my family would be just fine, but I wasn't so sure about myself. After 5 years of struggling on my own, I found the Clergy Project after it was recommended to me by a humanist friend who had read the Sam Harris article, Life Without God. An interview with Tom Prouse. The Clergy Project has given me new hope because I now know there is a place for people like me. I wish it had existed 5 years ago because I really needed the precious few friendships that are made here every day by people seeking support. Folks at the Clergy Project really understand what it's like to leave a ministry, to lose the support of your family, or to look for a new job because they've experienced it for themselves. I read their stories, looked at the answers to their questions in the forums as others try to make a difference by giving advice or listening. I have even offered a hand in support where it was needed. Even though the Clergy Project has only just begun, it has already become a very important part of my life. Some of my wounds are quite old now, but they still hurt. It means everything to me to know that there are others who understand how I feel and that I'm not alone. Okay, so that's one. And that's the only one I'll probably read, unless this next one's really short. No, it's not. Anyway, so I don't know. I just think again that people should be aware And I don't know if any theists are going to come along and listen to this, or I hope I'm not wrong to post these. These are on the webpage, and anybody could just click on testimonials and read them. So I think it's okay for me to share them on. And I'm not saying anybody's name, at least not their full name. So hopefully it's okay. But I just think that awareness is really huge. I've found that out in my life, that awareness is really, really huge. And I feel like if people of faith could just try to imagine what it would be like for people like this person here, who's a real person. It's his story. I left out a few little bits, but that's basically the gist of his story. How something can be so move them so strongly inside that they make such a huge change in their life, and the kind of courage that would take, People who think that these people are just led astray by Satan, that is so trivializing what they are going through and what they have gone through. A good person, I personally think, is not able to be a hypocrite. And people who are good people, and they're pretending to be something that they're not, maybe they'll try to do that for a while because they don't want to lose their wife or their job or the respect that they've worked so hard to get, or friends. So they'll go on pretending, but after a while, a good person, it's going to start to really weigh you down. The guilt of being false, not only to all the people that respect you, but yourself. You're being false to yourself. How can somebody who is being honest and finally saying to themselves and to the rest of the world, hey, this is not me, this is not what I believe, I'm going to be honest now, I'm going to tell you what I really believe, I'm going to be true. How can anybody look at a person like that, who has the guts to do that, and think that they're, and stick your nose up in the air and look down at them like they're, you were just led by Satan, or oh, you weren't really a Christian. Anybody with half imagination, you really think about what it would be like to go through that kind of a journey. Anyway, so that's all. I don't want this one to be another 25-minute video. I just wanted to put that out there, and I might read a couple more testimonials without giving people's names out, just because I think theists it would help theists maybe to understand what kind of inner battles go on with these people that end up losing their faith. So thanks for listening. Bye.